Welcome to the Longevity CEO podcast, where we dive into the science of living healthier, longer lives, share real-time stories of resilience, and discover actionable strategies to help you lead with impact and purpose. Because being the CEO of your health and longevity starts today. All right, welcome to another episode of the Longevity CEO. I am your host, Greg Schindler. Today's guest has a wild story. Jennifer Fox describes herself as authentic and witty and loyal and honest and creative. And she says other people will describe her as resilient, bold, authentic, courageous, and strong. The word authentic comes up there twice. And I can tell you from my first conversation with Jen, that is absolutely spot on, 100%. I can't wait for her to share her story, her passion, and we're going to dig in. Jen, I want to start first by saying thank you and welcome to the Longevity CEO.
Thank you for having me. It's really great to be here.
I'm going to go straight. And usually I want to talk about origin story or something and kind of set the table a little bit. But I know that it's all going to unfold from our conversation last week. And one of the stories that you told me last week that just really hit home and it's stayed with me since was the story about your baby brother. So on December 5th of 2018, I have that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tell us what happened.
So it was a Wednesday. I remember that. And I woke up in the morning and I got a call from my dad pretty early telling me that Justin had overdosed. Justin had been struggling with heroin for quite some time. So it wasn't the first time that he had overdosed, but it was actually the first time that I was called. Like, I always heard about it after the fact. I never really thought about it until you just asked me that question, but it was the first time that I got a call, like that it had happened in the moment. And I wonder if that is why I knew, like, this was the time. Right?
How old was he?
39. Yeah. And so when my dad called me, Justin was in Rockford at his partner friend Mary's house. And so he was at the hospital. So that's what I got from the phone. So my dad came, got me, we drove to Rockford. It's about an hour and a half from where I live in the suburb of Chicago. And so on that drive, he was on the phone with Mary. My dad was on the phone with Mary when he came to my house. And so we were driving, and I mean, pretty much right away when I started talking to Mary, I could tell that he was gone. Like, my dad framed it like he thought he had overdosed but might survive.
And he had done this before, so...
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. I actually have chills after talking about this. And it wasn't long into the conversation that I knew that he was gone. So basically what happened was he had nodded out in the winter night, and the cold preserved his body. So he kind of almost froze to death. So when Mary found him, I guess she called 911, and they were able to detect some faint heartbeat, and they were able to get him to the ER. So when we got to the ER, he was intubated and gone and dead in the ER room. But like, you could tell that they had worked on him, right? Like, the ER was kind of chaotic, and it was a day. That's a day that I won't forget. Like, an image, I can be right back there, thinking about it.
There's no good time, but that's just before the holidays. Mm-hmm. And I know that when we lose loved ones, they always, those first holidays, those first memories and stuff are sometimes the hardest. You're going straight into the holidays in December. You lost your baby brother. You guys were close?
We were very close. He had not made Thanksgivings for many years, either because he was dope sick or out somewhere high. So it had been a long time since we had been together on a holiday, and Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday. And so there was a picture, a selfie that I took of me and my dad and Justin and Mary, and I posted it on social media. It gets me every time. And all I wrote was so much to be thankful for this year. And I think it was like a week later that he died. Maybe even less than a week. Thanksgiving was late that year. So yeah, we were very close. You know, he was my baby brother, obviously. So I, changed his diet, but I mean, I helped raise him really. And then, it's funny because I don't even know that I appreciated just how much time we spent together and how close we were before he started using heavy drugs until I started looking through pictures, like to put together for his service. And I was just reminded of all of the stuff we did together, like through my late 20s. And
You guys grew up outside Chicago?
we did. Well, actually in Chicago, technically the furthest southwest you can get before you're out of the city limits. It's a neighborhood called Beverly. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So other siblings?
I have an older sister and then one other younger brother. Yeah. Yeah. And Justin was the baby of the family. And like fits the typical baby of the family in like every way,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
outlaw, probably
100%.
the big personality,
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
get,
Like he could sell ice to an Eskimo. Like that's how I always described him. Right.
yeah,
Like he would have been so great as my partner in running the family business, really, like had he been able to get his life together because his personality was just like off the charts. Yeah.
yeah. And, sometimes too, when the addict brain and personality can be very charismatic, right? And we become good salespeople because we believe it. This is the last time. It'll never happen again. I promise, right? And you believe it in your soul. And so you start to become good at, being convincing and stuff like that. It's a survival technique, I think. And so if this had been a pattern, for him, it's, we've all, I don't know if all of us, but a lot of us have had people in our lives who've been touched by, the disease of addiction, the illness of addiction. And it is an illness, make no mistake about it. I grew up with an alcoholic father that they make movies about, and took his own life when I was 12. And so I spent a lot of years, I don't know, angry and resentful and bitter and stuff. And as I got older, I started to realize he was sick. He was sick. I'm not trying to make excuses when I say that, but we have to acknowledge that he just had some demons and an illness that, we didn't know a lot about at the time, or he didn't. And he was sick,
Yeah. Yeah. I think
It's,
I've came to a very late realization that it's a disease, right? And I've been around like AA type things since I was 10 years old because my mom was an alcoholic, and that was my first Al-Anon meeting when she went to her first 28-day program, like Alateen. And I think like I never did the work while they were here. And so I wasn't able to find that kind of understanding and forgiveness while they were alive, right? I found it in my post-death, post-mortem journey since they've both been gone because of all of like the work I've done and the people I've met. And, I've come to realize and find that like level of forgiveness and understanding and grace for them that I do wish I could have found when they were still here. I've met so many people that have been touched by addiction in one way or another. I think when we talk out loud about it, right, we share our stories. It's amazing how many people suffer in silence, either
that's a
suffering
fact.
themselves as an addict or they have a family member and they have no idea what to do and they just suffer in silence.
There's shame. There's so much shame that comes a lot along with addiction. And, Laura Love Harden talks about this in her book, The Many Lives of Mama Love. And I've seen Hillary do it too, where, she says, she's in front of a room full of people and she says, I want you to think about the most shameful thing you've ever done. Like really think. She gives them a few seconds and then she says, all right, Now turn to the person next to you and tell them what it is. And the whole room is like, and she's like, that's what it feels like to be an addict and to suffer in silence, right? It's just this shame that you carry with you. And me too. I didn't have a chance to, you know, go through the forgiveness while he was alive, but we have to. We have to forgive. We have to heal, and we have to keep, and carry on and finding. And I love that word, grace. It's one of my favorite words. Truly finding grace and giving grace, whether they're with us anymore or not, is how we heal. Those of us who are left behind is how we heal.
Yeah, and I think I have found a lot of purpose in the pain that's left behind.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, and I think like I feel so strongly about living in a way that would make them proud. And sometimes I worry, like I think, like, oh my God, my mom's rolling over in her grave that I'm talking out loud about this, because it's not something that, if you're a family member
I
with
get it.
addiction in your family, like you understand, like you don't talk about it. And my mom blamed me for a lot of things. Like the reason I talked about it was the reason she didn't have friends, or the reason people knew she had a drinking problem was because I told them. And I'd always be like, I promise you it wasn't because I told them. But, I think like I don't know how to do it any other way. And once I recognize that shame, like I can look back on my mom's life and identify that she lived with so much shame. In the moment, I didn't understand it. Like living with her, and in the moment, I didn't understand the kind of shame she must have. It's only in retrospect that I can look back and say, like, okay, if I can save one person from having to live with that kind of shame, right? I have to live in a way that would make them proud. And how would I say this? Like, depending on, like, I was born with I was raised Catholic, and I believe in God, and that's my higher power. And so I think to myself, like, they're looking down on me and not living with any of that shame anymore, and therefore understanding why I am living in the way I'm living. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. No. It does. Let's talk about your mom a little bit. Tell me what happened there.
So, my mom was a great mom, but we had a very tumultuous relationship. And so if I were to pinpoint like my memory of when it started to go south, it would definitely be like in my late teens. So in my teens, while I was in high school, like mom, daughter, typical stuff, right? I was a pain in the ass. I was defiant. I wasn't a great student. My mom was kind of like a taskmaster, all of the like typical stuff. But then she filed for divorce the summer after my sophomore year in high school.
Can I ask you, is she drinking during your teens? Is she?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So my mom's first 28-day program, I was 10 years old. And when my dad and sister told me that she was going away for a month and tried to explain to me why, I have a very clear memory of crying and saying, like, Mom is not an alcoholic. No, she's not. Like, why is she going? Right. So I'm 10. I don't know what that is. And my mom drank every night, but I didn't see it. Like, she didn't drink in front of us. It's not like I don't have memories of a drunk mother when I was a kid. My mom was amazing. Like, she was that mom that if all of the kids on the block decided they wanted to go to Six Flags Great America at 7:00 or 8:00 in the morning on a Saturday, she's packing up the car and taking us. Like, she was a hands-on mom. She was a stay-at-home mom, like, very traditional. I grew up in a very traditional household. And so she apparently drank every night in the basement. And
so like you guys would go to bed and then she would.
right.
Got
Yeah.
it.
So I didn't see it. And to be perfectly honest, I really don't know, like, and I don't know if I've ever asked who made the decision for her to go to the 28-day program then. But obviously it was decided and she went. And so that was when I was 10. So I had like a bit of an awareness about the drinking problem. And then, like, again, looking back, hindsight's always 2020. I can remember like, oh, the smell of stale booze and like those things, right? And then she filed for divorce and life changed in our house. Things became much more chaotic. And then once my dad moved out, like, I was finding her passed out in the bathtub with no water left in the bathtub and cigarette ashes all over her, right? And having to put her to bed. And that was mortifying. Like I have
Yeah.
a very, very distinct memory of like walking through the room we called the library in our house and going to the master bathroom. And it was like there was a door from the library and then a door from the master bedroom that, from both ends. And my girlfriends being with me, two of my girlfriends. And I remember saying to them, wait here for a second, because I knew what I might find.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have a very distinct memory of feeling so much shame
Yeah.
about finding my mom that way. And they didn't see it, but like they were right there on the other side of the door.
I
And
get
this
it.
was my reality. Yeah.
I get it.
And then into my 20s, like there was so much trauma and chaos, part of the divorce and other things that happened to me. So like my 20s were kind of a shit show. And so our relationship became very tumultuous as well. So it was just like a parallel, right? My 20s were not great, and me being more aware of her drinking. And then I did not know until many years later, but she had also started taking Xanax. So if you think back then, I mean, we're talking like 1991, 1990, 1989. I mean, Xanax wasn't like a common household word. People wouldn't even have known what that was, right? But she was taking it. And so she had an addictive personality. She was drinking and taking Xanax. Again, like everything makes a lot of sense.
So let me go back. I want to create some setting here. So Beverly, Illinois is medium-sized town, small town?
Yeah, it's like a neighborhood within Chicago. It's a popular South Side, a lot of Irish, a lot of policemen and firemen, but also like, I'd say it's a middle to upper class neighborhood. So middle class and upper class blended together.
And your family you mentioned the family business, and I know your dad had started a vending business?
Correct. Yep.
All
Back
right.
in 1962.
Wow. And so when like vending machines and
Yes, right.
gas stations and restaurants and airports and
yeah, vending machines and coffee service. Yep.
awesome. And so you've worked in the family business, yeah?
25 years, yeah.
Right. Okay. So siblings growing up, is anybody else having friction with mom at this point? Are you turning to them and y'all are kind of bonding and creating, allies on the island, or what's going on there?
I wouldn't say that. My older sister is 4 years older than me, just shy of 4 years older than me. So we were not close growing up. And, she went off to college when I was going into high school.
Yeah.
So and she went down to U of I and never moved back to Chicago, like ever. She went to grad school there after undergrad and then moved to Seattle, work for Boeing. So she was really out of the family picture by the time she was 17, 18 years old. So it was really me and my brothers. And my brothers are 3 and 5 years younger than me. So,
Yeah, you're kind of stranded there in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. So there wasn't like a coalition between me and my brothers. It was more me taking care of my brothers, watching out for my brothers, helping raise my brothers. And that's why like we were very close because of that,
Where was your dad during this time?
I mean, my dad was running a business. My dad was very traditional. He was born in 1938. I mean, I could say a lot of things about my dad that would make you raise your eyebrow, but I think in the moment, like he felt like he was doing the best he could, right? Again, thinking back, it's like, no, he didn't make great decisions. And when my mom filed for divorce, my house was kind of like War of the Roses. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yeah, for sure.
So neither one of them would move out. And really, it wouldn't have been my mom to move out. It should have been my dad. So like he should have moved out, but he didn't. So for like 2 years, and the divorce took almost 6 to finalize, and they fought and they changed attorneys and wasted boatloads of money. I mean, it's just so dumb. But for the first 2 years, neither would move out. So yeah, it was ridiculous. And so there was a lot of like, think about the dysfunction and the unhealthy energy in that house. I mean, if I thought my mom had a drinking problem before then, and to be quite honest, knowing my mom like I do and did, I really don't think she filed for divorce thinking they'd get divorced. My mom was pretty passive aggressive. So I think she filed for divorce as an ultimatum, as like the ultimate ultimatum, thinking that my dad would finally change. right? Like she'd be like, serve him the papers, and then he would make things right. And he didn't. And so I think that's when it got really nasty and vindictive, And
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand it. I worked for my dad for 25 years. I love him and adore him, but I also remember very clearly when I started working for him thinking, I finally understand why mom divorced him. Because I thought I could, like, working for him is a lot. I can't imagine this being my, like, intimate partner in
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
He's a pretty volatile guy with an anger management issue. So, and I just think, like, back then, relationships aren't what they are today either. Like, men weren't groomed to be good partners. Like, he was doing what he felt like he was supposed to be doing as a
Right.
good partner. And
Being a provider, bringing home
right,
money,
right,
paying, and back then guys were not encouraged to explore their femininity and get in touch with their
right.
feminine side. And a lot, like there wasn't a lot of that going on
Yeah,
anywhere.
no. So, if I can look at it now from, like, the broad perspective that I look at things with, I do believe that in my dad's heart, he's a good human being. Like, I think he means well, and I feel like he feels like he did his best. And if I look back on my childhood, I mean, I grew up pretty privileged. Private education, never wanted for a thing. Always had the newest and the best and the greatest in terms of clothes, whatever. We took a family vacation like, we had a great life. And so I can see how somebody with no tools to be different would think, what's wrong with you people? Like,
Yeah.
I've given you everything.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. No, I get it. All right. So we're coming out of the 20s, tumultuous with mom.
Mm.
Let's pick it up from there. Because I'm going to go back to Justin. I want to go back to, you know, 2020 for you, right? 2019, 2020. But
Yeah.
catch me back up here now with Jen's story kind of coming out of the 20s with mom and what happens there.
So, well, and let me say, I mean, this is a great time to interject and say, I drank a lot with my mom, right? So as I got old enough to drink and, like, was an adult living out of the house, and we had a lot of fun together. We did, it wasn't always all bad. Like I said, I was very unaware of the Xanax, so I didn't know there were pills involved.
Yeah.
But then she blew out her knee and she got hooked on pain pills. And so somewhere around then, I knew, like, something was off, right? It was more than just alcohol. And obviously you work in and around people in recovery, and you're in, like, you're deeply embedded in that world. And there are a lot of people that don't understand this, but I think you will. When people are hooked on pills, there's a vacancy in their eyes,
Mm-hmm.
right? I can pick it out of a complete stranger now. Back then, I didn't know it, but I could tell something was off. It would be like, what is wrong with her? You know what I mean? So fast forward, and we'll just zoom right through the late 20s into 30s in 2013. So right before my 40th birthday, I went over to my mom's house. She had sold our childhood home. She was moving to the West Coast to live with my sister. She had already had a lung cancer diagnosis. So while she wasn't, like, in active, she wasn't actively dying in that moment, but she did have lung cancer. Like, she was being treated for it. And I told her on a Sunday that I was going to come over and help her pack. And so I called her that morning just to check in with her. And I said, my boyfriend was living with me at the time. And I said, hey, Mo worked late last night, so I'm going to let him sleep for like another hour and then we'll be over. I'll call you when we're on our way. She sounded fine, like totally fine. It was probably 9 a.m. So an hour goes by. Mo gets up. I call her and she cannot string 5 words together. And to the point where, like, again, I know what it sounds like when somebody's drunk, and it wasn't that. So I put her on speaker, and I remember saying to Mo, like, and he looked at me and he said, call 911. Because, like, if we get there and we put her in our car to take her to the hospital, we're going to have to wait in the waiting room with her. So we get to the house. She is clearly in an episode of, like, something's wrong. I call 911, ambulance comes, we go to the hospital. We're in the waiting room waiting for them to let me back to see her. And I go through her purse. And I brought her purse because I knew she was on a bunch of meds. And she's not going to be honest with the doctors and tell them what she's
docs need to know. Yeah.
right. But I also knew she carried all of her meds on her all the time. And I knew that I wasn't even probably aware of everything she was taking. So I'm going through her purse and I find a little bag, a little baggie with a skull and bones on it and brown powder in it.
How old is mom at this time?
68. And I mean, I was like speechless. The only time I ever saw any drug other than marijuana in like with my own two eyes was walking in on Justin snorting cocaine once. So I was shocked. And side note, this should have been a huge red flag for the man that I married a year later. He looked at me and said, I think that's heroin. And I should have been like, why do you know that? But anyway, so the nurse, like right after that, the nurse came out and said, okay, I can take you back to see your mom. So she's walking me back. And in that walk, she says, I'm really sorry, but I had to call the Chicago police because on the way into the hospital, your mom told the EMTs that your brother has had her snorting heroin. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? But I said to her, well, I found this in her purse. And I gave her the bag, and the two policemen were at the hospital room in the ER. And then we walked into the room to see her, and they had her intubated, so she was she was out. And the nurse turned her arms over and said, I'm really sorry, but those look like track marks to me. Now, I will say, because I feel like it's only fair to say that both my mom and my brother Justin denied to the day both of them died that she ever shot up heroin. But I definitely know what I saw. And you know what I mean? Like, there's a part of me that wishes I took pictures. But I guess it doesn't matter now.
I want to make sure I get the timeline right. Justin was December 5th, 2018. What year is this?
Oh, this is August of 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so she was obviously in the hospital, right? So 2 days later, I go to visit her. And they had told me, let's not have you come back tomorrow because we need to take care
Bring
of
her
her.
down a little bit.
Yeah, right. So that was a Sunday. I went to visit her on Tuesday. There's a social worker in the corner of the room because it's elder abuse, so she can't be left unattended. And I walk in, and she is what she would describe as bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, right? Like her eyes are clear and present because she's sober. And I'm with my boyfriend, who, by the way, we've been dating since January.
Yeah. All right. So 8 months in. Yeah.
Welcome to the Fox family, Mo. So we stand there and she goes, hi, honey. And she was so happy to see me. And I can't describe to you, but my mother was one of the most beautiful, charismatic, outgoing, genuinely beautiful humans when she was sober. So I hadn't seen this version of her in quite some time. And she was so happy to see me. And I went, hi, Mom. And she says, do you believe this heroin fiasco? And now the social worker's in the corner of the room. She's got a book and she lowers the book. She can't believe what she just heard. And I can't either. So I say, what did you just say? And she whispers it almost like a woman gossiping, right? I imagine little old women in a circle gossiping. She said, this is, can you believe it?
This feels like a scene out of a movie.
Yes, thank you. And I looked at her and said, Mom, spilling coffee down the front of your shirt on the way to the first day of a new job? Fiasco. Snorting heroin in lieu of Norco pills at 68 years old because you can no longer afford them from your street dealer? That does not qualify as a fiasco. And she batted her eyes at me like she just could not understand how this was just a fiasco. Literally looked at me like...
She's saying it Was she saying it didn't happen? It wasn't hers? Was she just denying?
No, she was 100% just like it was just a fiasco. Like, can you believe that I've been snorting heroin? I mean, it was just insanity. Like, and I actually looked at Mo in that moment and said, that's going to be the title of my book someday. So nobody can steal that. I can tell that story in the way that I do because it's so crazy. Like, I couldn't
Yeah.
make it up.
Right.
But if anybody were to say, like, what was it like growing up? I'd say, well, I was raised by somebody who chalked up snorting heroin in lieu of pain pills as a fiasco. Like, we're just going to move on from this fiasco. And that really was like, so it's almost like my whole
Yeah,
life.
like a birthday party gets rained out. What a fiasco. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. It was like on that, like so if I were to, we had like you and I talked prior to this call, a little bit of a get to know you, right?
Yeah.
And if I were to say to you, all of the things like you know enough about all the work I've done over the last 5 years, and we're going to get into it. But if I were to say to you, all the work I've done over 5 years and all the tools I have, I look back and think, holy shit, I have been gaslit my whole life. Like, because I was made to believe that this was all just normal.
Yeah.
This was just normal.
Yeah.
And so when I would talk about stuff going on in my life, people would look at me like I was crazy. The amount of times people have said, dude, you should write a book. I'm like, I know, but it was because people couldn't believe that I was just talking about these things like they were just another day.
It was normal for you, right? I mean, it was normalized.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%. Like 100%. I was groomed to expect like, look, this is just what happens. Let's just move on to the next fiasco.
So August 2013,
Yeah.
mom almost overdoses
Right.
on
Comes
something.
back.
All right.
Comes back. Lives with me for a while. Yep.
All right. And so then what?
So that was 2013. Then I got married in 2014.
To Mo?
To Mo. Yep. I miscarried twice in 2015. My mom died from lung cancer in March of 2016. I separated from Mo in early 2017, late April. Filed for divorce in January of 2018. Had a full hysterectomy in October of 2018. My divorce was final at the very end of September, and 6 days later, Justin overdosed and died. So that 5 years was a lot.
Yeah, holy shit. I was just doing the math. I was like, you had a 5-year stretch there that just
Yeah. And I mean,
being tested.
And, I tell my story and I typically use that 5 years because it's the best short kind of condensed like version to give somebody an idea of how I got where I am today, right? Like what sent me to my rock bottom. But if I'm being honest, it started when I was 10 and I had to sit at a table I didn't want to sit at as a 10-year-old and learn that way that, oh, my mom is an alcoholic and then and I didn't want to be there. And it's fucking shameful as a 10-year-old to have to sit. It just was awful. It was awful. I hated it. And then my parents divorced and then just my family chaos and tension. And then I was sexually assaulted when I was 17. And then my living brother attempted suicide and miraculously survived. So that was that little window of trauma. And I mean, I could give you more, right? Like it wasn't just 2013 to 2018. So there was a lot leading up to it. And then 2013 to 18 broke me.
Yeah, but you'd seen all this stuff. You'd been assaulted. Your living brother attempts suicide. Your mom's overdosing on heroin, struggling with heroin addiction. Seemed normal to you, right? I mean, like this was your life. I know that, your friends probably didn't have these things going on, but this had been such a part of the way you grew up that it's just one more damn thing I got to deal with almost.
Right. Yeah.
I don't mean to minimize it like that, but look, I get it. In my house, there was a lot of alcoholism and there was a lot of craziness. And when I tell my story sometimes too, people are like, what?
Right. Right. They look at you like they
But I
just don't
remember at the
understand.
time, like, this wasn't, and I was the son of the town drunk, and there was shame in that. He was a little league coach, and he would show up drunk and fight with the umpire and get kicked out. We'd have to forfeit the game, and then he couldn't drive, so I would go home with one of the other parents, or there were cop car rides and stuff. And I look back on it, and I'm thinking, well, this was the way things were. And I remember the shame because this wasn't happening in my friends' houses.
Correct.
And you don't think they know how bad it really is, and so you kind of minimize it, but everybody knows. Everybody, the parents know, and they talk, and I'm sure the kids were asking why they didn't get to ride in police cars.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What? Sure, you want to do that?" But yeah, so I get it. You just kind of growing up with these things, and it just seems like,
Like
damn, I'm
your
being
normal, your
yeah,
baseline is trauma, right? Like my baseline my whole life has been trauma and chaos. And somewhere along the line, I was taught that you sink or you swim, period.
what's the resilience, right? I
Those are
mean,
your two options. You sink or you swim, period. End of story. And you have a choice. And so I didn't know any better. I never felt entitled to ever feel like a victim of anything. Like it was just, I don't know. I don't know how to explain that other than to say that at no point in it did I give myself a moment to breathe or feel sorry for myself or recognize that like it was a lot. It just felt like this is what I
this is
have
my
to
life.
do.
This
And
is
I'm
your
not going
life.
to complain. What am I going to do? Complain? Because I was always reminded about how spoiled I am. I've been called spoiled my whole life. I've always been reminded of how lucky it is. Like so much. So it wasn't until so my 30s were like, I was bitter and angry, right? So like I started drinking abusively in my late 20s and rolling into my 30s. And now again, looking back and recognizing like, oh, I was numbing my feelings for sure. Because I didn't know how else, like nobody saw or felt like nobody saw what was going on inside of me. And nobody gave me any credit or any validation, right? Like even being sexually assaulted, like at 17, I was assaulted by a family friend. And then 1 month later, I was sexually assaulted by a friend's boyfriend while drunk. And I remember my dad saying to me, now I didn't tell him in the moment. Told him like a year later, I think it was. Bob Persons was his name. We called him Persons. He was like a grandfather to me. He ran a ranch in Colorado. Like I grew up cattle driving and like going there. I mean, like it was like Yellowstone, the show. That was like my childhood. So I remember my dad saying, Persons is just a dirty old man. Like he pinned me up against his kitchen counter, stuck his finger in my pants, finger fucked me as a 17-year-old and whispered, "You're not mad at this dirty old man," while he did it in my ear. And that was just brushed off as Parsons is just a. And so I was never taken seriously. I was just dismissed, right? Like my whole life, it was just, you figure it out. You figure it out. And I had my brothers to worry about and take care of. And my mom was a hot mess. And my dad wasn't around, and he kind of treated me like a significant other when he was. So like I had to live up to that expectation. So I went through my adulthood, like I said, bitter and angry, feeling unseen and that nobody understood, and I didn't have anywhere to turn. And then I felt like if I talked about it, then I was just feeling sorry for myself. So I just
But
had to figure it out.
I feel like you probably had just a shit ton of armor too, right? Like
Oh,
you're hardened at this point, right?
very, yes.
We call it.
Abrasive.
People tell me I was in my 20s. I was angry, and people are like,
Yeah.
"At who?" And I'm like, "Everybody."
Everybody, yes.
It didn't. A stranger, the guy behind the counter. It didn't matter. Yeah, no, I get it. And look, when I was drinking, when I used to drink, I always say, if I look back and I think, how shitty would it have been to been that guy just Friday afternoon, he's leaving, the office, he wants to unwind, have a couple drinks and, just start his weekend or whatever. And he pulls up next to me on a bar stool. And I'm, 3 or 4 drinks in, because you're going to hear the story,
Yeah.
right? At
Yeah.
that point. And he's like, I just want to have a drink and kind of end my week. And he's next to end of days guy, here talking
Yeah.
about suicides and all this other kind of stuff. But then I got hard too. I got bitter and angry and hard and said a lot of the same things, right? Like, you know what? Suck it up, sink or swim, and all this other kind of stuff. But we know now
Yeah.
that
And like, I had nobody in my life guiding me, and I didn't have a healthy parental figure, right? Like, I didn't have anybody saying, "You've been through a lot. How are you?" So I didn't feel like I had any options. I just didn't feel like
well,
I
you
had
didn't,
any options other than to survive.
I mean, you didn't want to feel anymore, probably, right?
And I
Feel the
didn't want to
hurt
feel
and the
sorry
pain and
for
the
myself.
betrayal and the, yeah, yeah.
And that feels pathetic, to feel sorry for yourself. And I would tell, even to today, like, I talk about it so nonchalantly, it makes people really uncomfortable. And it's like, I don't know how else to talk about it, because it was my normal for so long that, like, it doesn't even sound
It doesn't sound
dramatic.
crazy. Yeah.
It doesn't. I only know how crazy it is by the reflection of
You see
people,
people's
right? Like,
faces.
yeah, correct.
Jen, all right, so you start drinking abusively, 30s, late 30s.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's not like it never became a drinking in the morning, drinking during the day, like
But you're
abusively,
drinking to check
like,
out. You're drinking
r-
to check out and
yeah,
just numb and
regularly.
don't want to feel this bullshit anymore. Yeah, yeah. And still working in the family business, right?
Yeah,
Functioning.
started at 26 or 7. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
functioning. Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because had I not started working in the family business, which was definitely not my plan, who knows what would have happened sooner. But because it was a family business, and even though I had a ton of accountability, I still got away with way more than I would have if I worked for somebody else. So,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So fast forward now, we get to 2018 and
Mm,
you lose Justin.
yep.
What happens next?
Well, so both of my living siblings don't live in Chicago. So it was just me here. And I ended up planning his services. My girlfriend Laura actually came with me, so I didn't have to be alone. But my dad was really catatonic. And, you know, when you lose somebody close, you understand there's just a shock period. So I don't know how else to describe that, but it was numb. I was just numb. And I had been doing dry January, oddly enough, since 2015. So I knew instinctively that my drinking had become very unhealthy. And so I started, like, I was a voyeur in sobriety groups on Facebook. I had no Instagram, so just Facebook. But it's funny, those sobriety groups are great, but they also can be a double-edged sword, because my drinking problem didn't look like a traditional stereotypical drunk story, right? I wasn't doing any of these things. So I'm reading all of these posts in the Facebook groups, feeling real good about myself and my drinking. I'd be like, these people are fucked up. Like, I don't know. And, but like, you can't unknow what you know.
Yeah.
And so obviously I saw something about dry January somewhere. I didn't make it up myself. But in 2015, there's a sobriety book out there. I don't even remember the name of it, but there's a meditation called the Time Traveler Technique. It's in like the Alcohol and Addiction Cure. That's the name of the book, the Alcohol and Addiction Cure. And in the beginning of that book, I read the book, loved it. It recommends you do this meditation. I did the meditation, heaved, sobbing, like out of body sobbing, because I knew from this meditation, like, I have a problem, like, I have to do something. So I started doing dry January, honestly, to prove that I could, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just
And it
dry
was
out for
easy.
30 days and yeah.
And it was easy. It felt easy. My husband was never able to do it, but I made it. And it wasn't like I white knuckled through it either. It was like, great. So at the end of December, I thought, like, okay, I'm going to go into dry January. And I did dry January in 2019. And then I threw an epic flippin' pity party for myself for the rest of the year. So February through December, man, I drank a lot. I'd say probably 2 bottles of wine every day. Maybe not every day, but enough that the average would have been 2 bottles of wine every day. And I had gained a lot of weight. So I had gained 40 pounds. I was drowning in grief and depression, drowning. And I just saw
Probably a lot of
in the boat.
unprocessed stuff, right? A lot of
Oh, right.
unprocessed trauma and grief.
Right. From everything I've told you. Right. So it was 5 years, but it was really a lifetime of chaos and trauma that culminated in the death of Justin that broke me. And so
At any point prior to this, have you seen therapists? I mean,
no.
no. Okay.
Mo and I started to see a therapist together, marriage counselor.
Marriage count, yes.
Yeah, again, a red flag if you start seeing a marriage counselor within 2 months of getting married. But such is life. I think I saw a therapist about Justin. No, nothing.
Okay,
nothing of any substance.
Right.
No. So
All right.
no help.
So February to December 2019, you're full on.
Yes. In the summer of 2019, I bought a Peloton treadmill, drunk one night. Woke up to a confirmation email.
As you do.
As you do.
As you do.
And I woke up, literally saw the confirmation email and said, guess I'm going to be a runner now. Literally. I said that out loud in this where I'm sitting. And I could have returned it. I'm sure I could have called Peloton and said, oopsie, sorry, didn't mean to hit, check out. But I didn't, because something inside of me had always wanted to be a runner. And it's really more about what I imagined a runner was. When I saw people running outside, what I imagine that person is as a human being is fit, healthy, dedicated, self-disciplined, gritty, all of these things that I kind of saw in my imagination as the kind of person I wanted to be. And I just couldn't figure out how to get there. And I had no role models to get me there, looking back. So I cut the treadmill, didn't do anything with it, let it collect dust.
As you do.
As you do. At some point, I saw a friend post about this 3-day personal development conference that Rachel Hollis used to put on. Looked it up. It was expensive. It was probably, I'm making this up, but let's say $3,000 for a 3-day. And that was a lot of money. It is a lot of money. But in that moment, it was I don't even know if I had the money to spend, but I was just I have to go. I started to reach for anything I could, anything. I knew I can't live this way. I can't keep living this way. Well, fast forward to about November, I had not yet sent out the thank you cards after Justin's service. So it had been almost in a complete year. And I still had them. The funeral home gives you the thank you cards. And I had them. They were in a box behind my desk in my office. I saw them every day, collecting dust as well. And I was at the office late one night, saw an advertisement for Live a Great Story. I had been seeing that repeatedly. I clicked on it, saw that they sold stickers, and had kind of an aha. That's what I'll do. I'll write a letter. I'll thank everybody for for showing up however they showed up in the last year. I'll include a sticker and I'll implore them to live a great story because Justin didn't get his chance. And I did that. And writing is my passion. And so I wrote a beautiful letter and asked people to show me where they put their sticker. And so I started getting texts and emails. Beautiful. I got this beautiful email from this kid that grew up with Justin. And everybody's telling me stories about Justin and showing me where they put their sticker. And man, I was like, I'm a fraud, right? Here I've written this beautiful letter and I've inspired all these people to live a great story. And I am living the most pathetic story. I'm drinking 2 bottles of wine a day. I'm way overweight for me and my body size. I am miserable. I am drowning in depression and grief. Fake it till you make it. It's one of my least favorite sayings in the world. But, that's what I was doing, I guess. And so in that moment, I really did just say, okay, this is not sustainable. And who am I kidding? I'm living the worst story. So I said, that's it. I I think the running commitment was my first. I said, I'm going to run a 5K every month until I can do that without stopping to walk, because running made me feel like I would die. And so I did that. I signed up for the turkey trot here. I signed up for a run on New Year's Eve. I signed up for races. I signed up for the personal development conference. And then mid-December, late December, I'm actively engaging in these sobriety groups on Facebook.
I'm curious about something.
Yeah.
So you strike me as being headstrong. Like
Yes.
you kind of wake up one day and go, I'm doing this now, and then you're going to do it, right? I mean, if it's something that you feel like you want to do. Was there a health component to this where you like, I got to get my health, I got to get my shit together from my health standpoint? Are you starting to kind of, because you mentioned overweight, drinking excessively, can't be feeling good every day, right? And you're starting to, sort of realize that, okay, this is sustainable, can't do this. And I love the idea that you're like, all right, I'm a runner now, right? I drunk dialed a Peloton treadmill, and okay, I guess I'm going to use it, right? Rather than return it, which is, look, I tell people all the time, I don't care how you start, turning things around or getting your health journey going, or just doing, look, and when I say health, I mean physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional health, right? I need to be really clear about that. When we talk about longevity, people think, oh, it's like living, healthier longer. And it is, but the mental, physical, emotional part of that is as important, if not more important, than the physical
100%.
part, right? We have to, and the spiritual, we have to be, we got to balance all these things. So you start running this turkey trot, this 5K, are you consciously saying, all right, I'm going to lose some weight, I'm going to get better at this, I'm going to keep going longer. Okay. All right.
So let me be clear. There is a vanity component to this for sure.
100%.
I have a very healthy ego, and I am not cute, chubby.
Anybody that says they doesn't understand ego. So there's
that.
Hey,
like this I hope this is okay to say, but if we could just go back to a little bit of the days where guys felt free and comfortable to give women compliments without being accused of like any number of things, because I'm like, oh, you think I'm hot? Please tell me. Like, I would like to know. No, you don't have to be shy. You think I have a nice ass? Let me know, please. I mean, so in reality, yes, I have a healthy dose of vanity. I did not feel good. I've always had body image issues from the time I was young. Like, there's a post on Instagram that I did 6 to 12 months ago because I was looking for pictures for something else and found a bunch of pictures of me from childhood on, like, so from say 11 years old to 19. And they were pictures where like I have a very clear memory of like that bathing suit is from The Limited, or that bathing suit was a J. Crew bikini. And I remember how I felt on that exact day. Like, I remember that party at Chip Palmer's house. And I remember having a huge crush on Eric Simpson, who's in the in the picture with his arm around me. And I remember thinking I was fat. And I look like I need 3 hamburgers in this picture. Like, I have a 4-pack and skinny arms. And I'm like, holy shit, the amount of time I've wasted thinking I was fat, right? So yes, absolutely. The running component had a lot to do with like, I don't feel good in my body. And also, I mean, if I'm being honest, the alcohol, like, I really didn't have an understanding of my relationship with alcohol until the last year. So I always knew, okay, well, alcohol's standing in my way of the body I want or the fitness I want. Like, so when I would see a runner out in the wild, they just embodied everything I wanted my life to be, everything, right? And so when you're abusing alcohol, you don't have discipline. Like, I wanted that discipline to make healthy choices all the time for myself. And so
when you sign up for the turkey trot, have you stopped drinking yet?
No.
Okay.
No, in fact, I was hungover. I was wearing, this is actually quite funny now looking back, given that I've run a lot of races since then, but that was my first, like, of this journey. I was wearing 2 pairs, like a pair of long underwear with a pair of fleece-lined leggings, 2 pairs of socks, probably 4 shirts, like long underwear, 3/4 zip, another sweater, a puffer jacket, a hat, gloves. And it was like 58 degrees and sunny in Chicago. Like the most beautiful running weather for shorts and a t-shirt ever. And so no wonder my average heart rate for that race was 191 beats per minute. I'm surprised I didn't die of heat stroke.
Beat out of your chest.
Yeah, and it was. It took me, I think it was like 47 minutes or something to finish that 5K. I mean, I really did feel like I was going to collapse and die. And in fact, I posted the workout with some commentary saying as much. And somebody actually DM'd me and said, does your heart rate always run that high? And I was like, yeah, why? And they said, well, no wonder you feel like you might die. You might, like, that's not normal. And I actually went to a cardiologist and got a whole workup because I was really worried about my heart. And it turned out I was just very unhealthy. Nothing wrong with my heart. It was just wrong with everything about my lifestyle.
Yeah. But it would have been a matter of time, though, if you don't start fixing. Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. If I didn't do what I did in 2020, I very, very easily could have drank myself to death if I continued drinking the way I was in 2019.
I get it.
So, my my relationship with alcohol wasn't healthy for, the decade prior. But it wasn't like I said, I wasn't drinking all day long. I wasn't craving alcohol. I wasn't drinking at inappropriate moments or anything like that. I just was drinking too much too often, basically. But 2019, I was drinking like a raging alcoholic, full stop, and eating like garbage and not taking care of myself. And yes, my heart rate was very high and like all the bad things. So everything was unhealthy. And then so sometime in mid to late December, I just don't know what possessed me, but something possessed me, like just instinctively. I knew this is not sustainable. I cannot keep living this way. And what good does it do if I died too? Like, my brother died of an overdose. My mom, like I write somewhere in her story, while alcohol and drugs did not take my mother, like that's not what she died from, it did take her.
Yeah.
Long before the day she died.
Yeah.
So
if it didn't take her life, it certainly took a lot of years.
Absolutely. It took the life in her years. And so I looked at it and just instinctively thought, this is not what you're here for. Like, it's not going to bring them, you're going to, drink yourself to death to make what? So I decided that I was going to do a dry 2020 instead of a dry January. Just decided. And like you said, I mean, I'm only recently giving myself a little bit of credit for having that kind of like a headstrong, set my mind to something and do it. I kind of thought everybody had that power. I didn't really realize that was something special. But I decided, I said something to a friend. And again, he was sitting right behind me at this kitchen island. I said, I'm going to give up drinking for the whole year. And he said, well, you're not going to tell people you're quitting drinking for the whole year, are you? And I looked at him genuinely like confused. I don't know. I hadn't thought about what I was going to tell people either way. Like, why do I need to tell people what I'm doing? But why? And he said, well, aren't you afraid that people are going to think you have a problem? And that was a real pivotal moment in my life because I remember very clearly looking at him and saying, I drink 2 bottles of wine every day, sometimes more. That's a problem on anybody's measure. I don't give a shit what anybody thinks, right? And so I think that planted a seed I wasn't aware of in the moment, but like it planted a seed of me realizing like, holy shit, how many other people don't do anything about their relationship with alcohol because they don't want to be called an alcoholic, right? Like that was pretty powerful. Like I said, I didn't realize it in the moment. It's been a journey of 5 years.
Yeah.
But I can tell you through hundreds, if not more, conversations since I made that decision and started publicly, outwardly talking about it with zero shame, how many people are drinking in shame. And so that started it. I mean, by the time COVID hit in mid-March, I think it was March 19th when we went into lockdown, I was so well on my way with my whole year, it just, quitting was like not fulfilling the commitment I had made wasn't even something that dawned on me. There was never a time in 2020 where I was tempted to have a drink. Never. And if I had $1 for every time somebody said, you picked a real bad year to quit drinking, and I would say to them, I don't know, man, I think I picked the best year because if I rolled into 2020 drinking the way I was in 2019,
Locked up
I
with
might be
yourself.
dead.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd either could have drank myself to death, could have gotten into a fatal car accident, could have killed somebody and be in jail. Like any number of
Now,
catastrophic
let
events
me
could
ask you a
happen.
question. Are you doing AA or 12 steps or anything during this time? You just
No.
cold turkey. You just,
Yeah. I mean, I never did. And I don't identify as an alcoholic myself. And at this point I am in therapy, I should add. So like active, regular therapy. No, I never felt the need for that. Like I don't know. I didn't,
no, that's
I had been
great.
around it enough. Right. And I didn't
Hey,
feel ashamed at all.
that's also special, by the way. Very few people who do struggle with drinking or any substance abuse can do it on their own, right? Very few, right? And so there's that headstrong, again, you sort of, I'm making this decision. This is how it's going to be.
But I'm going to be honest with you, Greg. I think what's partly to blame for that, very few people being able to do that, is the shame component. That if people felt comfortable just talking about it without feeling like they had to identify as something, if they could just talk about their drinking and just say, what does it matter? Like, this is how I explain it to people. Like this year, I've got my Zero Proof project. I'm in the middle of another alcohol-free challenge. And what I told people very early on is, listen, I don't really care if you identify as an alcoholic. It has no bearing on me whatsoever, right? And nobody else should care about that either, but you and the people closest to you that your drinking may impact. But at the end of the day, I do not think that that is the first question we should be asking ourselves or other people. I think the question that would much better serve people is alcohol serving you? Forget about whether you're an alcoholic for a minute. Let's just put that aside. Let's just talk about that, like that meditation I told you, the time traveler technique, is so powerful because it has you envision. It talks you through envisioning what you want your life to be 10 years from now. And it makes you come up with your eyes closed, a detailed image in your mind of what you want your life to look like. And then when you come back and say, is alcohol going to help me get there? I can almost all but guarantee every single time your answer is going to be no.
Yeah.
So I don't identify as an alcoholic at all.
Yeah.
But I know
It wasn't serving
that
you.
alcohol wasn't serving me.
Yeah.
And I knew that what I envisioned, I wanted to become a runner. I wanted to be able to run 3 miles without stopping to walk. I wanted to lose the 40 pounds I gained. I wanted to not be depressed every day, drowning in grief. All the things I wanted, I could clearly see. I had to be honest with myself to say, if you want these things, there's no frickin' way you're getting there if you're drinking. And so like I'd already done dry January for enough years to know that 1 month wasn't going to cut it. And so for me, it was like a year was like far enough out where I just got it out of my way, where it wasn't an option. So I could focus my energy on other things. And I ended that year running a half marathon, 13.1 miles without walking once. I couldn't run a mile at the beginning of that year, literally, like straight up could not run a mile. And I ended that year running a half marathon. So I feel very passionate about this topic because I watched my mother live her life in shame. I get very emotional about it. If I could have given my mom anything when she was here, it would have been more grace and understanding. And I would have done everything to try and help make her feel less ashamed. And so I want to give people that power to stop talking about it in the way of you have to label yourself something that is like makes you broken forever, and change that narrative so that more people, right, will stop and say, how is drinking like, I'm going to feel comfortable talking about this because I don't have to label myself an alcoholic forever. I could let's just talk about my drinking. Like it's not serving me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel really strongly about it. And not to take away from AA at all, because I know it's helped a lot of people. It didn't help anybody in my family. They also didn't do the work either, right? But
look, we get there how we get there,
yes, Right.
But
Right.
I love that. And that is a question. Is it serving me? Is my drinking serving me? Is my
Right.
relationship with alcohol serving me?
Yeah.
I mean, clearly the answer for me would have been, you
Right.
know,
Right.
absolutely not. But I understand that shame you're talking about. I've been sober twice, this time for 7 years. And the first time was for 4. I didn't talk about it then. I didn't go to rehab. I didn't, do any of that. I just started going to meetings and got a sponsor and was sober, but I didn't tell anybody at work. I didn't, if they asked me, hey, you're not going to drink, it'd be like, I'm on medication or
Yeah, you had to
I'm
lie. Did you?
training for something
Right.
or it's a health thing or it's whatever. I lied. I didn't say, hey, no, look, I don't drink alcohol because I'll, you know, wind up on the other side of town with strangers at 2 o'clock in the morning with
Yeah.
new best friends. So, but I mean, and it was shame. I was ashamed of it, right? I didn't talk to my kids about it. It's just dad used to do that. Now dad doesn't do that. All good. Nothing to see here. Move along. And of course that didn't end well. After 4 years, I was on an airplane flying down to Argentina for work and I was in the business class section and the lady came by and she
Mm.
said, would you like, and I used to love to drink on planes and in airports for some damn weird reason where it's,
Love having a drink in an airport. I
what is
agree.
it? Because they're
I
crazy
don't know.
expensive and
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
never great. I don't know, there's something about, like, the gray area of an airport where you just feel kinda lost.
I
Like,
guess.
you're not there,
Yeah.
you're not here, you're, like, have no responsibilities, you're stuck. I
Yeah.
don't know, I agree. Not
Yeah.
planes, I'm not a although I guess if you're in business or first, it's a different
I,
experience, but I'm
I
not a
mean,
drink on plane kinda person.
it was a long flight, and she came by with a glass of wine and said, and I just said yes. And then there was 3 more years of, out there in the wild, and then, got sober. And then, I've been sober for 7 years, and this time it's been, I talk about it, I can tell that there's still some shame. I still get
Mhm.
that that feeling, in there. So I love that. I love that. And, Hillary talks about that too, right? About the stigma, and especially with women, right? For whatever reason, it's a little bit more shameful to be an alcoholic if you're a woman than it is for a man. I'm not saying
Sloppy,
yeah,
right?
sloppy. I'm not saying that's true. I'm not saying that's right or valid. What I'm saying is there's a stigma
Yeah, it
in
just is what it is.
society that you're supposed to wear capes and take care of everything. And, women don't get fall down drunk like men do. And that, to your point, I think she says the statistics are for every 2.5 men that seek treatment, only one woman does, and they suffer and struggle in silence because of that shame.
Yes.
So I love that. I love that. So look,
Well, I'm gonna tell you a huge win for me. So in the Zero Proof Project this year, I have a woman who's become a really good friend of mine, and we have Monday night Zoom check-in calls every Monday. And it's just how was your week? Great week, hard week, challenge, whatever. And at the beginning of the year, she had not even told her husband that she signed up for this challenge. Now, the sign up was just sign up. There's no money. It didn't cost anything. Just it's a challenge. Challenge yourself to give up booze for a year. 47 people started in that group. There are 5 left. 5 of us. She and I are the only 2 that are on most of the Monday calls. Handful of others sometimes pop in, but it's mostly her and I, which is how we became so close. And at the beginning of the year, she had not told her husband because he didn't know how much she was drinking. So she said, can't tell him that I'm doing an alcohol-free challenge because he's going to wonder why, because he doesn't know how much I drink, right?
uh,
So that was one. And then she didn't tell anybody about it. And she really struggled with, what am I going to tell people? How do I tell people? The women at the gym always have mimosas after pickleball, whatever, right? We had our Monday night call last night, and she said, like, and not she's comfortable talking about it with everyone. Like, it's just watching her evolve over the last 9 months has been so rewarding for me because she is the poster child for what I'm talking about, right? That she never talked about her drinking. She had no idea how to talk about it, who to talk about it with. She felt ashamed. She felt alone. She couldn't even tell her own husband not because their marriage is broken or what, just because like she didn't, that conversation is not available to people because we don't talk about it like that. We talk about alcoholic or not, normal drinking or alcoholic. And that's just such BS. There is a huge gray area between those two things. And I don't think people who do identify as alcoholics should feel ashamed either, by the way.
No.
But I think there is a huge swath of people in the middle. And those are the people that I'm trying to reach with my message.
Yeah.
Is the people like my friend in this group who didn't even tell her, like, didn't know how to talk about it. And now talks about it all the time and feels very comfortable and zero shame and has no problem saying to somebody, no, I don't drink. And she now understands why I said to her, when I tell people I'm not drinking, it feels like a superpower. I mean, I love. It's almost like fuel. When people go, you're not drinking for the whole year, right? Like literally, I don't think, unless somebody's in recovery, there has never been a person that did not react that way. Unless somebody says, I haven't had a drink in 8 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is no other response other than, wait, what?
Well, it's normalized, right? Yeah, in society.
You know how good, though? Because Hillary calls me a pollinator. I love her for that. Like, that really stuck. And I'm like, I don't give myself a lot of credit in a lot of ways. But when she said it, I thought, yeah, that's what I'm doing. Because I see the twinkle in someone's eye when I tell them. Like, this just happened on my dad's birthday. I took him downtown for dinner. We're sitting at a bar restaurant we go to all the time. Friends own it. Very popular. I walk. My dad sits down first. I go right to the bathroom. I come back. Rudy, the bartender, love him. Known him for 20 plus years. He has a glass of Chardonnay poured for me. I've been going there for 20 years. He knows what I drink. And I say, like, and the bar is jammed with people, right? We're in downtown Chicago. And I go, Rudy, I'm not drinking this year. I'm doing an alcohol-free challenge. And he just went and got me a club soda, whatever he got me, right? And there was a young guy sitting at the bar that heard that. And he was like, wait, what? I don't know this kid. He's 30 years. I actually asked him, he's 32 years old. I get lots of information in a short amount of time. 32, just got married 2 months ago, whatever. But I saw the twinkle in that kid's eye. And I can promise you, maybe it won't be next year. Maybe it won't be a year. Maybe he'll just do dry January. But I promise you that kid will not forget that conversation because I see it in his eyes because his wheels were spinning. And he made the comment to me, I should probably do that. And I can't tell you how many people say that to me. So my comfort in talking about it, because I really don't care, opens the door for other people to go, wait, like, so you're not in like AA, you don't go to recovery, you look normal, whatever, like, and you're not drinking and you're out in a bar, like, what's it like? I get so many questions. What's it like? Is it hard? Do you think it? And I'm always like, no. And then I always say, I mean, in reality, if you can't give up booze for a prolonged period of time, perhaps you do have a problem. So I don't know. And then I always like really light. I'm like, hey, no judgment, but just some food for thought.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a problem with it, it should be easy for you to put down.
Yeah.
And so if it's not easy for you to put down, maybe you should do some.
Look a little deeper, see if it's serving you. Yeah, I love that. There's a whole thing about this gray area drinking, right? I mean, in gray area stuff. I'm kind of one of I don't give a shit how you get there. If it's a problem that's not serving you, it's impacting the people that are close to you and you love. And
it's got to go.
Whether you're an alcoholic or not, or you just want to, I don't care. Just, I mean, anybody, like you grew up in that home. I grew up in that home. If it's a problem, I don't care how you get there. For me, I was able to go through, AA worked, still does, steps, or I think, I don't know, man, they're inspired.
Well, and aren't they good for everyone?
It doesn't matter what it is.
Right?
Powerless over, and whatever you want to put in that blank, alcohol, sex, shopping, food, it doesn't matter, right? Just put anything in there. Yeah. It works for everything. They're just great, principles. But again, I don't care how you get there. I love the fact that you sort of hacked that idea, right? And it takes someone who's.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think it's like, if you look at, I just wrote a letter to the 29029 folks. I don't know. We we can or can't talk about that, whatever you want to do, but it's a mountain climbing endurance event I just did. And I just sent them like a thank you package with a letter. And in that letter, one of the things I wrote is to be the woman that I have seen in my imagination for 3 decades is so powerful. And that's just choice. Like, we all have choices. We all make choices in life every day. And then we have to live with the consequences of those choices. And you can boil it down to alcohol's a poison. It is. I mean, if you want to get granular about it, right? There's a great book you can I won't remember off the top of my head, but by the end of the call I will. But I remember listening to it and being like, that's a great book for anyone to listen to because it's just gets into the nitty gritty of the data, but it makes it very digestible. So we all have choices. And if you see in your imagination a life, you got to make that life happen.
You know
And
how I
you got to
started
figure out how to do it.
thinking about it, Jen, is legacy, right? So I had this idea a while back, a few months ago, that, legacy feels like accomplishments and wealth and your name on a building and a hospital or whatever, right? It's like for athletes and celebrities and, this legacy. Legacy is for everybody. Legacy is for all of us. What you just said, these daily choices and actions, right? And consequences. But that's how you build a legacy, one brick at a time. So the legacy you were creating, the chosen legacy you were choosing, drinking 2 bottles of wine and being unhealthy and doing all that, could have been your legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you went through what I call this conscious rewriting to say, nope, I want to be like that girl. I want to be like that guy. I want to be gritty. I want to be disciplined. I want to be hardcore. I want to do all these other things. That's who I see Jen Fox being. So I'm going to do this, right? I'm going to go. And so you started consciously rewriting your legacy. And that is a persistent, consistent daily choice and actions that support those choices to where you just start rewriting your legacy, because legacy's for everybody. And I was talking about this from a health standpoint. What is going to be my health legacy? Am I going to be the alcoholic that my biological father was? And, and I've had 2 paternal suicides. Both my biological father and my adoptive father both took their own lives. I am statistically way more likely than most other people on this planet to die by the same way, to die by suicide. That will not be my legacy. And I take consistent daily choice. I make choices and I take actions every single day to do things that are going to keep this, and this body healthy, so that my legacy, I rewrite the legacy, right? There's an inherited legacy. We're born into the trauma, the alcohol, the whatever it is. Some of those things are inherited legacies. We don't get to choose them. But to your point, we get to choose which part of that legacy serves us and which doesn't. And that's what you get to choose to take with you and or rewrite. So I've really been and I love that you said that, just these daily choices and actions,
And it's like it's very granular, right? Like there are little things I do every day, like my gratitude practice. That's free. I hate when I hate it. I hate it when I hear people say they can't afford a healthy lifestyle. It makes me crazy. So you can get a pen and paper and
I was going to know, I wanted to touch on Dragonalia and tell me about this.
Well, so I started Dragonalia in 2021. I launched this community very strictly to have a platform for people to share their stories of recovery so that people that were too ashamed to talk about it could see other people that look just like them. I think recovering out loud is really important. The anonymous in AA bothers me for that reason. I want to get rid of it. I want to empower people to talk about their stories, share them with no shame. Everybody's got a story and everybody has flaws. So if your story is drugs or alcohol, okay, whatever. I wanted to have a platform where people could go and share their stories of recovery just so that people that weren't there yet could see themselves. And then we sell coffee because that's what I do for a living. So it seemed to make sense. And $1 from every bag goes into a scholarship in my brother's name. And then, to help people who can't afford recovery. And that's with Heron Project right now. And that's, if I can, like you said, legacy, I want my legacy to be that I was a lighthouse for others. The purpose to my pain is that I can use it to inspire somebody else to make a positive change in their life. Now, if that looks like a woman in Northern California that decides to give up alcohol for a year because she knows it's not serving her and she does not know how to do it or how to talk about it. And in 1 year, she had one oopsie during the football playoffs. She's a 49ers fan. She went to a game. She had a drink. So she had a blip. I called it a blip. It's a blip on the radar. Jump back on the horse. And she did. So she's been alcohol-free the majority of the year. To me, that's my legacy. If my comfort in talking out loud about my story and my shame or all the things that other people would love to make me feel ashamed about, right? Like, I don't feel ashamed about it, but if me talking about it helps one other person figure out something,
100%.
if me sitting here talking to you, the reason I do these things is if one person, I may never know who that person is. I get people reach out to me a lot, so it's very rewarding to know that I've made an impact. But if my comfort in sharing my story and how I got here helps one person figure out their story, my life was worth something.
100%.
And so my decisions I made to change my life were selfish. I wanted a better life. They were just for me, right? It's trickled down. It helps everyone around me, but they were for me. I wanted a healthier body. I wanted a fitter body. I wanted to feel more attractive. I wanted to feel better. I wanted to wake up in the morning and be stronger. I wanted to be smarter. I wanted to be a better business owner, a better friend, a better partner. I wanted better. I wanted better than the life I was giving myself. And I've done that. I'm doing that actively. I will actively do that for the rest of my life. I recognize that it's an every day that I make a choice, one day at a time. It applies outside of the AA community. That's why I don't like this whole, let's segregate everybody over here into alcoholics and AA. No, we're all, one day at a time applies across the board in life. What do you want your life to look like? Who do you want to be? Well, then make the decisions that support that. And if you can do that and drink alcohol socially, like I'll never say I'm never drinking again. I've never said that to anyone. I never will. I have no idea what next year looks like. I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about right now and the fact that I just signed up for a half marathon or a half Ironman, on Justin's birthday next year. But like, I now make a lot of choices that support this life I say I want to live, because that's the life where the best version of me shows up.
Yeah.
Right. And if I can be a lighthouse for somebody else to do that in their own life, like, I've won. I am winning.
I want to ask you, so one of the questions on the intake is, if you could wave a magic wand and live to 150 years of age, why would you want to? Right? And think about your legacy.
Oh, what I say?
Your passion. No, your answer, I think this is going to be strong to end on this. It's been interesting. My first year in my 50s, because I almost immediately had a visceral awareness of time like I've never had before. I regularly have this strong feeling of I'm not ready to die that I never experienced. There's just so much more I want to do. Travel, adventure, write a book, start a podcast, do a TED Talk, make an impact. I would argue you're doing that already. I guess I don't like feeling like I'm living in, I guess I don't feel like I'm living in my purpose, and I don't want my life to pass me by before I accomplish that. I freaking love that, right? It's the why, and it's that purpose. Look, adversity to impact, you can check this box, right? You're helping other people. You're doing this. And to your point, I love that awareness that if you say something, if one person's listening to this, they may not like me, they may love you, and they hear something that you said, and that changes, they make a change. I call them not today moments. You and I talked about this.
Yes, we did. That's a great story.
We talked about this on Not Today. Is you just say, you know what? Not today. If one person, then you know what? Mission accomplished. Mission freaking accomplished. And to that point, and we'll never know unless they DM you or send you a text or something, and that's okay. But when in my world, in this longevity world, just helping people be healthier and hopefully for longer, so they can do these things, so they can find their purpose, do their TED Talk, do a podcast, do whatever it is that we all want to do for longer. I was treating some veterans who came down. I saw them at a trade show, at a conference that we were both at. And, guy was a Green Beret. He looked like a freaking Viking off of this show, Vikings and stuff. And so I was like, hey, I want to meet this guy and talk to him. And he was talking about having TBI, multiple TBIs from being overseas. He was 22 years in the Army. And I said, hey, I have this clinic. You don't know me, but you can ask around and find out about me. I think we may be able to help you, and I would love for you to come down. Thank you for your service. Bring a couple of your guys, and we'll treat you. It'll be on me. And so he did. He took me up on it, and they came down. And these guys work in an organization called Aerial Recovery, and they go out, and their main purpose in life is anti-human trafficking. But they do natural disaster release. They're in North Carolina right now. I think they're probably the largest nonprofit with boots on the ground in North Carolina, helping all those poor people over there. The devastation of the hurricane, the flood. And my idea was, or the thought that occurred to me is, I help these badasses go out there and continue to do the work that they do. The ripple effect of just helping 3 guys who do that kind of work will impact so many lives of people I'll never know, don't need to know, but I'll know that they're out there now because we help them be a little bit better, to your point, just better, just a little bit better. And I'm not saying we did anything to fix it. We just helped this little part, right? So that they can go out there and be the badasses and the warriors that they are, helping all these other people. And I love that. That's where I get, that's this passion and this purpose. It's this adversity to impact. What are you going to do about it? We're going to sit and cry and pity party and feel bad and feel, be pathetic for ourselves? Or are we going to get our shit in a pile and we're going to go out there and see what we can do to try to help other people? Set an example, be a pollinator, be a lighthouse, be somebody. Look, years ago, nobody was coming up to me asking me for my advice. Nobody was saying, I want whatever it is you've got, what you're doing. But I got tired of living that way too. And I wanted better. And I had a not today moment. And I turned my shit around, and my dad, my adoptive father, he gave me, Dad 2.0. He was my person. He was my best friend in the world. Having grown up with the dad that I had for the first 12 years, I've never been more grateful. It was like one of those rescue dogs that you get from the pound. They're always the best dogs because they're so grateful, right, to be out of there and rescued and stuff. I kind of felt like that a little bit. But he wound up taking his own life in October of 2010 because his health was failing and he didn't want to be a burden on the rest of us. And he went into a storage unit and closed the door, in a rented storage unit, and ended his life. And I do what I do now to try to help people with understanding what's going on in the world with, medicine 3.0, or, how things are rapidly changing, because I didn't have access to the tools back then that I have access to now. And had I, maybe things would be different. Maybe he, would still be here. So I get it, man. I get one person helping. Just, there was a woman who hadn't seen her grandchildren in 2.5 years because it was too painful to fly or drive. And they lived on the other side of the country. And for whatever reason, her children, her daughter and her son-in-law couldn't travel to see them. And so she had been living with this pain for 9 years, and she came to me and I was talking to her, and I said, well, why now? Why today? Why are you deciding to do something? And she's like, well, I'm tired of it hurting when I get out of bed. And I said, that can't be it. You've been living this way for 9 years. I mean, it's got to be something better. Then she kind of uncovers this whole thing about the grandchildren. And I'm like, all right, so that's it. That's our goal. You're going to see your grandkids. I'm going to try to help you. And when you do, you can pay me the other half. Only pay me half today. She started crying and tearing up. Long story short, 4 months later, she comes back in. She's got pictures on her iPhone of her and the grandkids. They had flown out there, seen them, and she's like, you changed my life. I'm like, no. You changed your life. You made that decision. You took those actions.
Choices.
You made the choice. You trusted me and you listened for just a second, and we did it together. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's why that's what I want to do. That's how my purpose is. So I know I rambled there for a minute, and I just hijack my own podcast. They always tell you,
it's your podcast.
Let them talk, because nobody wants to hear from you. They hear from you too much. I'm not ready to die, right? I had this strong feeling of I'm not ready to die that I'd never experienced before. So much more I want to do. I guess I don't feel like I'm living in my purpose, and I don't want my life to pass me by before I accomplish that.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I I think that I don't want to say wasted. That's a negative word, but I spent a lot of my adulthood not living in my purpose. And the first change I made in 2020 to extract alcohol from my life to get my shit together, to boil it down to something simple. So I think that I have spent a lot of my adult years wasting my God-given gifts and my natural personality and drinking, warming bar stools, you know? And I think like Justin's death and my hitting my rock bottom and then my 2020 was the pivotal moment in my life that got me to the point where I just started reaching for one thing after another that was going to get me closer to this version of a human being that I wanted to be, that I saw in my imagination. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I have said the words, I could never run a marathon. Honestly, like I dreamt of it. I would watch the Chicago Marathon on my television and I would say, I could never do that. I never imagined. If you told me 20 years ago that I'd be the person doing marathons and 29 mountain endurance events, like I would have looked at you and laughed and like, I couldn't have imagined that. Like I could imagine it, but I couldn't see the path between where I was and that person at all. And now that I'm on it, it's like, oh, this is the road, right? Like I was on the wrong interstate for the first 40 years. And now I'm on the right interstate. And I realized that like, there is no destination. Like the destination is the damn gone, right? Like we're all going in the same direction.
Just a journey.
I think Jesse Itzler says time is undefeated. And that's true. Time is undefeated. Like time's going to win. And so I like, this is the highway I've been looking for. And this is the highway that's going to keep getting me to places that I want to go. If I keep making the right daily choices over and over and over again. And I think that visceral, like, awareness of time, it was wild that it hit me. My birthday was last Friday, so I just turned 51. And this literally, it was like overnight when I turned 50 last year, I started feeling this visceral awareness of time and realizing like, I don't have a lot of time left. And that sounds crazy because I'm a very healthy 51-year-old, but I've lost enough people to know that like, when it's your time, you're going, so I can do everything I want. So I know like, I want to make sure that I'm not going before I should go because of bad choices I made. I don't want to go early because I drank myself. I drank too much. I don't want to go early because I ate like shit. I don't want to go early because I didn't take care of my body. I want to know that I did everything I could. I lived my life to my fullest. I was as authentic as I could be. And that when I'm gone, I touched as many lives as possible with my story to help people. And I can feel good about the human being that I was and the legacy, like you talked about, that I left behind. And so like those daily choices, man, like they're so important. The little teeny things that you do every day that make up a big life. We all have the power of choice, all of us. I don't care where you come from. I don't care how much money you have. We all have the power of daily choices. And man, I am very aware of the time I've got left now.
I would say that those daily choices and the way you're showing up is driven by purpose, right? I mean, if you look at Dragonolia and what you're doing to honor Justin, you look at Zero Proof Concept and what you're doing and the woman that shows up on the Monday night Zoom calls.
Yeah.
I mean, you're creating impact in people's lives and you want to continue to do it. And the way for you to do it is to stay on this path, keep challenging yourself, keep doing these things, keep showing up daily, consistently. That's fueled by purpose is what I hear. I have a quick question and I don't want to be playing junior therapist over here by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm going to ask a question and it may sound absurd coming out of my mouth, But are you kind to yourself? Do you, do you show yourself that same compassion and kindness that you feel for these women or these other people, these, men and women that you've
I'm
kind of
getting
talked about?
there. I'm getting there. I think we have a saying at Dragonolia, it's finding beauty in the darkness. And I think that that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, 100%.
And I feel like what I'm doing gives purpose to the pain that has been my life. So I don't say that in a dramatic way, right? Like, I'm not like, woe is me, my life has been so painful. It has been incredibly painful and traumatic and chaotic. It's also been beautiful. There's lots of great things. Like, if I look back on my life, it is a smorgasbord of good and bad. But I think, okay, if I can give purpose to the pain I felt, that makes it all worth it. Then I don't feel bad about all the bad things that happened to me. Then I can say, of course, if I had a choice, I would have Justin right here sitting with me. If I had a choice, I'd bring my mom back. If I had a choice, I'd change all sorts of things about my story. But I don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. We don't have that choice. You cannot go back. It's why I say all the time, regret is a useless emotion. I hate it. I really try very hard never to say I regret something. Yeah.
Let me see if I can change your mind on that.
Okay. Uh-oh. Okay.
Daniel Pink, who I had the pleasure of meeting one time on Necker Island, is an author. And he wrote a book called The Power of Regret. And it opens with a bunch of like celebrities and even a famous Supreme Court judge saying, I have no regrets. I have no regrets. And then I saw him speak and he goes, bullshit.
Yeah.
Nobody gets out of their 20s. Nobody survives their 20s without regretting something, right?
But here, I'm going to interrupt
on.
you. Oh, okay, go ahead.
Hang on. And he says, regret reveals the things we care about the most, the things we value.
Yes.
So when you regret not taking better care of yourself, or you regret not showing up, in someone's life, it reveals the things that you care about. And so you can do what you do, which is decide to change it, right? Get headstrong, make a decision, and then make choices and have the actions that are consistent with those choices on a daily basis, so that you do show up for the things that you care about and the things that you do value. And that power of regret, it shifted my way of thinking about regret, because all it does is reveal the things that we care about.
So I agree with everything you said. I think much like my issue with labeling people alcoholic, like what's the value in that? I think what I mean by regret as a useless emotion is because most people get stuck there.
Fair.
Right?
Fair.
So they have regret and they get stuck in that regret forever. Of course, there are things that I wish I could go back and change. Yeah, it's like, oh my God, the number of things I'm like that are cringeworthy, right? From little to big and everything in between.
We all have them.
Of course, there's not a single human being that does not have I wish I would have done that differently. Yes. I don't know if I ever talked about this. When I was 20, maybe 19, 20, I had an abortion. I was in a relationship, took the pill every day, never missed it. I'm that 0.1% that got pregnant. And now that I'm 51 years old and I never got the chance to be a mom, it could be a regret. That could be a debilitating regret, right? I could live the rest of my life regretting that I made a decision at 19 or 20 that I can't take back. There would be no value in that. So what I mean by regret is a useless emotion is if you get stuck there, there's no value. So you have to be able to identify the things that you wish you had done differently so you don't keep doing them over and over again. There's no sense in regretting the past because you get stuck back there. If you don't learn from the things that you wish were different, you're just going to keep regretting forever. So like, I can look back and think, I wish I was nicer to my mom. I regret. But what I'm doing with all that feeling, similar to what you're saying this author said, right, is I've taken everything and I've changed my life so that I can give purpose to all the pain, that regret of the things I wish were different. I can't change those things.
Yeah.
Or I can't get stuck in regretting them. But I can, from this point forward, go, I don't want to keep repeating that. So I'm going to look forward and stop feeling bad about the things that I could have done differently because I couldn't have done them differently. I can't think now, I wish I hadn't had an abortion at 19. I can't think that. At 19, that was the right decision for me to make. I was a hot mess at 19. My parents' divorce was still going on. I was 2 years from being sexually assaulted, not once, but twice. Actually, the guy that was my boyfriend, we're still connected on Facebook. He's from Boston. He's married with 2 kids and, looks like he has a lovely life. But if I regretted that decision, what good does that do me?
Yeah.
It does me no good because I cannot go back and change it. So that's what I mean by that. And so I think that's just like multiple ways to skin the same cat, right? We can talk about the same topic in a lot of different ways. For me, I have so much that I could regret. It would do me no good. What I've done is I've given purpose to it. And I move forward with decisions, giving myself that forgiveness and grace. And like you said, kindness, like I'm learning to be nice to myself. I'm learning to not talk about myself in a negative way. I'm learning to observe myself instead of be in. Like I read The Untethered Soul, and I had that book in my house for a couple of years. A friend of mine sent it to me, like I think in 2020, and I never read it. And I started to read it multiple times. It never resonated. I picked it up this year. It struck me to the core. And I catch myself doing it naturally. I catch myself observing my own emotions. It's wild, actually. And it's been really helpful to like separate myself from emotion and not like be that angry person, but be like that's a silly thing to be angry about.
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think like my experience of time now is just being so aware that life flies by so fast. You hear that when you're young and you just don't understand it until you're older, and you're never going to. So there's no way you and I could impress upon younger people because they're just not going to get it until they're our age, right? And then we're going to be old and still here or gone already. But it's like time starts ticking in a different way when you hit that midway point, if you're lucky enough to make it to 50. And then you're like, shit, I
got stuff to do.
I can't take this time for granted anymore. So I don't want to regret the way I spent the first 50 years. I'm going to recognize that I wouldn't be here today, the person I am, having this conversation with you right now, if the 50 years didn't happen exactly like they did.
Yep.
So I don't have any regrets. Because if I did, we wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what I mean by that. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the time I've got left. And I am excited about this past year's journey has been powerful. Very different than 2020. Very different. Sober year, alcohol-free year. I feel like I've peeled back 10 more layers of the onion that I ever touched in 2020. And it's interesting because I think I've done a lot of reflection, and I've thought, well, I wonder if it's because 2020 was such a strange year, and it was just different on every level. So I really didn't have the opportunity. I didn't do the work I've done this year. I think just because I was so focused on A, running my business during a global pandemic, and B, a global pandemic, right? Like we were all kind of living in the twilight zone. It was so bizarre. And so I never really this year, 2024, life is just chugging along, right? Everybody's doing their thing. The world went back to normal. I mean, to whatever degree. And so I had to really it was just me and this challenge. And then the world was back to normal. I'm going to my trade shows and all the places I would have drank. I wasn't tested in that way in 2020, right?
Yeah.
So this year I've had some moments that I just never had in 2020. And one of which really stands out is that I went to a female wellness conference or retreat in February. I've gone 2 years in a row, really loved it. And I decided to stay at a resort about a half hour from the location and where everybody else was staying. So let's just say it was a tough day. We got into a lot of nitty gritty emotional stuff at this retreat. And I had a 30-minute drive home to my resort. Everybody else was 5 minutes away. So I'm in the car by myself. And it was literally the first time that I recognized, in a awareness in this real-time moment, holy shit, I do use alcohol to numb feelings. Because if I were drinking right now, the first thing I would do is go right to that resort bar.
Yeah.
Right? Like I
Yeah.
didn't crave alcohol. I wasn't like having to think, I wasn't having to keep myself from having a drink, but it was an awareness of this is what I would do. And the reason I would go to the resort bar when I have to be back up, it's 9:00 at night. I've got to be back at this facility at 8 tomorrow. I'm hungry. There's no reason for me to go to the bar and have a drink. Right. But like if I were drinking,
It's exactly
100%, I would have gone right to that resort bar and had a bottle of wine, like without question. And so it was the first time that I had an awareness of like, I guess I do use alcohol to numb emotions. I had honestly never, I assumed that's what I was doing,
right.
but I didn't have an awareness about it.
Connected. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And then, so that's happened on 2 different occasions this year where it was like really loud, but I've just had a lot of awareness moments this year in a lot of different ways, not all, having to do with all sorts of things. And I think like that is a gift. If I could, I hope that people can take away a bunch of little nuggets from our conversation. But man, if I could inspire one person, we're coming close to the end of the year, right? I think I'm not a New Year's resolution kind of person like that in general, but like a year-long challenge. If I could inspire one person to just challenge themselves to try and eliminate alcohol from their life for 1 year and watch the magic happen, can't even tell you. Like this friend from the group, my Monday night call, she actually said last night, she goes, I finally understand why you said the year is important, because a month isn't enough. And yeah, maybe 90 days gives you a little taste, but a year is a powerful amount of time. It is like the greatest gift you could give yourself and your body and your sleep, right? And all there's no downside. There's literally no downside.
It's enough time for transformation to happen,
Yes. And if you decide that it's 1 year and you go back to drinking, have at it, whatever, again, no judgment, not my problem. You do you. But if you can give yourself that year, that gift, you will not regret it.
Yeah.
There's I would bet $1,000 that you won't come back to me at the end of the year and say, man, I really wish I had been getting drunk every weekend.
Right. So how can people find out more about this?
You can find us on Instagram. So my personal handle, I don't have my page set to private. So it's I'm a Fox 73. So IMAFOX 73. And then Dragonolia, which is dragon, and then OLIA, which is like the dragonfly and a magnolia tree, story for a different day, but it's in honor of my mom and my brother. And we have an Instagram page and we have a website as well. So www.dragonolia.com. And yeah, I mean, I love hearing from people. So please DM me either place and you will get a response.
I got a suspicion this is going to touch some lives. I really do.
I hope so.
The authentic delivered, man. I mean, I knew this was going to be an amazing conversation from our call last week. I was so looking forward to it. Yeah. And I have to tell you, the full transparency, you had emailed me and said, hey, I'm running 10 minutes behind.
Yeah.
But I didn't see it. And so I was sitting here sort of going, she's not going to ghost me. I mean, I know Jen's not going to. And then it was like 8 minutes and then 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was bummed, right? I was so looking forward to this conversation because I knew it was going to be this, right? Yeah. And so
that makes me happy.
I've just, thank you. I mean, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for you.
I'm super grateful for the opportunity. I mean,
you're a beautiful soul.
It took a long time to get comfortable not feeling like I was boasting or feeling sorry for myself or, just all the things that you could feel like. And then I just had to really sit back and go, you've had enough people tell you because of you, because of you and the fact that you shared about your sexual assault, I told my husband and my family that I was assaulted by our family dentist. I've never told anybody that. Somebody I know that I grew up with messaged me that. I was like, I have gotten so many DMs. Because of you, I quit drinking. Because of you, I whatever. And so I finally had to realize, keep telling your story. tune out anybody who thinks that your motive is
Amen.
misplaced, because I know my soul and my motive is very pure.
It comes through.
And
That comes
I
through.
just, if me sharing my story helps one young woman not spend 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 years of her young adult life regretting, wasting away, right? Living in a way that's not authentic to who they see in their imagination. If somebody hears me and makes a change and they become the woman they see in their imagination, the fact that I said it earlier, I get choked up because it's just something I wrote and only realized in the last 2 weeks, but that I am the woman that I have seen in my imagination blows me away, right? And so I want other people to feel that. And I only know how to do that by sharing my story and like hope they figure out how to get there on their own. Like I can't give a playbook, right? Because everyone's playbook is different. I don't know how to tell you to get here. I can tell you what I do every day. I don't know if it's going to have the same impact. Do the gratitude. I can tell you, you're not going to waste time writing 5 things down you're grateful for every day. It will not be a waste of time. It is so powerful, free and easy, and it literally helped change my life. So yeah, I mean, let's go, right?
Let's go. Jen, take care of that woman. The world needs more of her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
This has been amazing.
Awesome.
I knew it would be. Thanks, Jen.
Okay. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.